is the sound of a lion enjoying its kill, and is the sound of a lion outside of our guest today, Maddie's tent, when he was on a hiking and camping safari in Africa. I had so much fun doing this interview with Maddie today because it brought back so many fond memories of my own safari in 2014, although my trip wasn't quite as glamorous as the one we go through today. Even though he's camping in many places, eco-lodges others, his safari was much more luxurious and safer than the one that I did, and I'm super excited to share it with you. So let's get started. Welcome to the Active Travel Adventures Podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks, and like I said, today we're going to be going not just to one country in Africa, we're going to go to 3 countries. We're going to explore Botswana, with also a little side detour to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. We're going to Tanzania, both on safari and climbing Kilimanjaro. And finally, we'll be going to South Africa, where not only will we be doing a hiking safari, but also we'll have the opportunity to explore culturally in Cape Town and some of its complicated history. I am super, super excited to share this amazing continent with you, and I can't wait to get started. My original plan was to interview somebody that went on a new active adventure trip, and Active Adventure is one of my affiliates, and so they were branching out into Africa, and of course, the trips this summer didn't go down because we all know what happened this year. So instead, what I thought I would do is ask Maddie Yates, who's the head of sales and marketing, who did the scouting expeditions for all these new tours, to have him come on and give us a broad stroke of what they're doing over there, because they've got some tremendous, exciting tours going on that even though we can't go right now, we can still plan, because these are big epic trips. So these are things you do want to plan in advance. So with that, welcome to the show, Maddie.
Oh, hi, Kit. Good to be here.
Yes. And we actually met almost 2 years ago when I was doing your New Zealand trip, when I met you at your office in Queenstown.
That's right. I remember it. Yes.
Yes. And the world has certainly changed since then. But in the meantime, you have broadened your reach into the world and are now going into Africa. So tell us a little bit about where you're going over there, and then we'll dig down just a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Back in July 2019, last year, John, who's head of our ops team, and myself were lucky enough to go across and recce. We've done a lot of planning and building the trips from New Zealand with partners on the ground there. But of course, we needed to go over and check out exactly what it was all about and to do as many components and parts of the trips as we could. And I just felt very, very lucky. My father was actually born in Zimbabwe, which was, then Rhodesia. So I sort of grew up hearing all these stories about, the amazing wildlife and sunsets and scenery. And it's always been a dream of mine to head over. So I must admit, when we started to have, whispers of Africa possibly being our next destination, I was throwing my hat in the ring pretty quickly to help out and get out there and experience really, really a life-changing trip.
It is. I often tell people that my New Zealand trip with you was my favorite trip, but I tell you, neck or neck is I was lucky enough in 2013 to go to Tanzania, to the Serengeti. And tell me, when you got there and you saw all those animals, didn't it still, even though you knew you were going to see them, didn't it still blow your mind?
I just couldn't quite believe it. As much as you imagine witnessing that scene, yes, it is absolutely mind-blowing. And what really blew me away is that, I thought getting to see all these different types of animals, and the big 5, and I thought it was, it would take weeks, months to actually, see all, but the fact that they're up front and you're so close to them so quickly, and I just, absolutely mind-blowing.
And it just, when it's not even, the first few lines you see, like, oh my gosh, but after a while, like, more lions, more elephants, more gazelles, it's just, there's just so many animals.
Yeah, up in that, in Serengeti and then Ngorongoro Crater. Oh, yeah.
Tell us about the Ngorongoro Crater, because that's pretty cool in and of itself.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was told we were going to a crater, I had the wrong picture in my head. I had a sort of small, hole in the ground that had some animals at the bottom, but you're driving down into the side of this thing, and then you realize immense size. It's just massive. We drove through in our 4x4, and just animal after animal. You tick off the entire Big Five pretty quickly. It's an incredible place. And what I really loved about the Serengeti is it's, those savanna plains, that typical, sundown, and those scenes with the single tree and an animal, and it's just magical. It really is.
It is, and just if people are not familiar with the Ngorongoro Crater, it is the world's largest caldera, which is a collapsed volcano. And so, like Mandy says, you've got this big flat, the bottom of the caldera, which didn't fill with water, which some do. So this is nice and flat, and then you've got the walls. And what my guide told me was all the animals were able to get in there but the giraffes. So that's the only thing you won't see in there. You'll see the giraffes elsewhere. But it's just herds upon herds upon herds of these massive game animals. It's just amazing.
That's right. The trip we've designed, and this is a good example of how we've gone about designing all of the 4 trips we've started out with in Africa, is to mix a little bit, because there's a lot of, especially with the Ngorongoro Craters, it's so vast. You do quite a bit of driving, but all of our trips are a bit of a mix between game safari, so seeing the animals from the vehicle, but we've also introduced walking safaris, which, is a completely different experience. You don't get as near to the animals, you don't perhaps see as many animals, but the adrenaline and the fact that you literally become a participant instead of an observer, you become, I guess, in reality, you're literally becoming part of the food chain, and it, you feel it, but it's safe. It's always guided with expert guides. And the great thing about these walking safaris is there's no fixed length. Your tracker, your guide might get onto some white rhino tracks and start following, and he's explaining the kills that certain animals have done when he sees a particular track. It's adrenaline, and it's pumping, and you can end up hiking for 5 or 6 hours, or perhaps only 2 or 3. But it's a really, really cool experience. So we've got plenty of that walking safaris going on.
Yeah, I like that, because I saw that on these trips, you've got the traditional active part of the active adventures, whereas mine was strictly a safari. You are doing walking on some of them in Botswana. You're doing one of the dugout canoes.
Oh, the Mokotos.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, we've named the trip after those traditional canoes called Mokotos. So these were used to canoe through all the river channels in the Delta. So the Okavango Delta is this vast stretch of water and all the channels. And what I noticed about, traveling around Africa and the different countries, that everywhere you went, you realized the importance of water and how it's vital to all the animals there. So everywhere, all the animals, of course, are always searching for water. And the Okavango Delta, because it's such a huge mass of water, you've got tons and tons of animals. It really blew me away. I mean, while you're Mokotoing, canoeing through these channels, you'll hear these big sort of crashing through the reeds. And so your guide in the Mokoto will stop, and then right in front of you, 10, 15 meters away, a huge herd of elephants just sort of crosses slowly through the river channels ahead. I've got some amazing footage where we just videoed this happening, because it's kind of a narrow view ahead of you, but then they just all pass from right to left. And you, of course, sit there, wait, and in awe, and then of course continue along the river channel. On our trip there, we Mokoto to this amazing spot where our guide took us on, I think, probably the best walking safari I did while we were there. He was just an incredible tracker. He was quite renowned in the area. His name was Okva. But and this is the other thing about these walking safaris, you learn. Felt like by the end of our trip, I was spotting tracks and noticing which direction, where they were going, what was the animal. It was incredible.
And they are trying to kind of give you a feel of how to track it. So it's not just, let's go look. He's showing you the scat. He's showing you the paw prints and how the vegetation bends. And they know, these guys' eyes and their experience is so well trained. My guy was able to spot, I'm like 500 feet away, a black rhino. We're like, where? And with the binoculars, sure enough, he was right. They just know.
Yeah. Well, one time we got onto these tracks of a rhino and cub. He knew straight away the size, the age of the cub, the weights of the animals, and then sure enough, we peer around a corner and bang on. It was an incredible experience.
But is it dangerous when you're kind of that exposed?
It feels it, and because, you sometimes you have elephants, following you. But I mean, these guides, I remember speaking to Okfa about this, and they go through years and years of training. It takes a lot of training to become a fully qualified walking safari guide. And yes, they carry guns just in case. But I remember talking to every guide on all of our trips. Not one of them had fired a weapon at an animal. I think one of them had fired a warning shot, about 6 years ago. So it's one of those things where, yes, there's an element of risk, but when you actually, compare it with crossing a road, and that sort of thing, it's really, the risk is low. But, it certainly gets the heart pumping nonetheless.
Right, and they can read the signals from the animals, which they will give you. Because I know when I was studying about bear safety from my other podcast, the bear tells you whether it's bluffing or it's for real. So they give their little signals, and I'm sure the guides know all the signals and what this means. In fact, I remember once in the Jeep, the elephant, he could read one of the signals. He said, "Okay, everybody get down in the Jeep," because the elephant was getting alarmed. So they know.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about, we're talking in general about the places. So you're basically going to 3 areas. Botswana, as well as heading over to Zimbabwe to Victoria Falls, to South Africa, and also Tanzania. You do the hiking safari as well as climbing Kilimanjaro.
That's right. The Kili, we take the Lemosho route. We did a lot of research. There's a lot of different routes up Kili. The Lemosho, we just thought there was the most incredible way to get to the summit. And it also didn't rush it. There were some other routes where...
I like that about that too, because you allowed plenty of time for acclimatization.
Yes, yeah, because some of the ways up there, some people do it in sort of 2, 3, 4 days, and it's just too fast, But the Lemosho, so it's safe. You get to view the volcanic cone, which is called Malwenzi. You go past glaciers and glacial valleys. You hike the Barranco Wall. You hike the Shira Plateau. And that is a very, very tough hike. We would class that, alongside our Everest base camps, those types of treks. We're going to be sending over our top Himalayan guides, actually, to go up on that. So, safety is a big factor. After Kili, this is the trip, the Serengeti trip, the Nyumbu. So that's a short 5-day trip, but it's been designed to add on to the Kili trek, because that way, you get to see these savanna plains, you have the opportunity to see the wildebeest migration, crossing rivers, and the walking safaris, the game drives. It would be a shame if you just went to do Kili and then that was it and flew out, because you'd miss all the opportunity for the Ngorongoro Crater and that other stuff we discussed earlier.
For people that may not be familiar with it, exactly what is a game drive?
Okay, so a game drive is, they've got these extended, they're usually either Toyota 4x4s or Land Rover. There's actually a good bit of banter that goes on between whether you're driving one or the other. But they're open top, they've got a canopy above you. The drivers are also, expert guys. They'll see tracks, 100 feet in front of the vehicle and know where to go. So with the game drives, the animals have become very used to these vehicles. So you can get unbelievably close to them. When they find lions, they'll get you right up next to them. But the game vehicle makes it safe. So that's the huge difference between this, walking safari and the game vehicles. You really, don't need binoculars on a game vehicle, but you certainly would with your walking safari.
And I would think, too, on the walking safari, too, you're not walking in tall grass. You've got visibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember this one time we were watching 2 female lions eating the carcass of a wildebeest. And so it was maybe, I'm going to guess, like 20 feet away. And so we're all watching. But the grass was, I don't know, maybe 30 inches tall in front of us. And we did not see, like 5 feet away from us was the male lion resting until he raised his head. We're like, whoa. I mean, he was right there.
Yeah, well, there was one time when we were in Botswana, we were staying by the River Kwai. And, this is, we're staying in another one of what they call safari camps. But, I'm sure you witnessed these as well. It's really luxurious glamping. You end up having a 3-course meal, and there's the ensuite toilets, connected with a tent, and it's a real sit-down toilet. And absolute luxury, a proper bed, and bedside tables and lamps. It's absolutely beautiful. So we were staying here. We'd finished a beautiful dinner. We'd gone back to the tent, and we heard this lion's roar. I actually recorded it, so I'll send you the recording. It's just incredible. But then, the guys is telling us, exactly how far away. Would we like to go and have a look? And this was, it's nighttime, so we were like, yeah, absolutely, we'll do a night game drive, and because they wanted to go and have a look at these lions. And then so we follow them for a bit. We kind of go completely off road. The guides are, and then they turn the vehicle off and stop. And then we heard this like a crunch, like bones crunching, and then that gave us a bit of direction. So we carry on and we get there, and when we get there, you can see, there's this two lions. The guides, there were two male lions, and the guides thought they might even fight over this food. So we sort of, reversed back a little while, and we sat there. But it was just, and then you're watching the scene and hearing these bones crunching, and hyenas start to come. So they're all kind of circling us, still completely safe because, we're in the vehicles, but just, we were literally in the ring of hyenas and all these other animals coming to this kill. And yeah, just mind blowing.
Now, is this truly at night or at dusk, or do you have night goggles, or how are you seeing this?
Oh, we were literally for the headlights for the truck. They just put them.
Oh, so that the headlights aren't even bothering them; they're just going about their business.
And exactly, and I've got this photo of it's so it's all dark on the edge of the photo, but you see these headlights focusing on a lion with this a baby giraffe kill, and all the other animals coming in. So I'll flick that through to you. It's quite a scene.
Yeah, that's something. And just I have a couple stats I want to say just to put perspective, because we keep saying a lot. Just in the crater alone that we're talking about, there's 1.7 million wildebeest. There's 260,000 zebra, 470,000 gazelle. I mean, it's full. It's just full of animals and big animals and the birds. Just like 500 species of birds. It's like a massive wild zoo.
Yeah.
That everybody's running around. You're the one that's caged up. It's just utterly, words can't describe it.
No, it really can't. I mean, I can remember even our first domestic. So we flew into Joburg, but we flew to a small airport, Maun. And so just even coming into Maun, you then look down and you see giraffes, elephants. Yeah, it's like landing in a zoo. You're dead right. It's crazy.
And so I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned about the lodging, and I was chuckling to myself because your idea of glamping versus what I had when I went. All right, so I'm going to describe mine, and you can tell us about yours. So we had a stand-up tent, and I was like, "Oh, kudos for that. That's really nice. Canvas, a decent mattress, and all that." And so I asked Alois. I said, "What do we do for the bathroom?" Because we weren't allowed to leave the tent at night, except this one place where we were caged in, where there were lions. And he said, "No, you can't leave the tent." I said, "Well, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom." So we had to make a pee bottle out of a water bottle. So that was my camping experience. Tell me about yours.
Well, I know of those situations because there is one on the Okavango Delta where, yes, we're a similar situation where there's not an ensuite. I think it's the only one night or one of these 4 trips where we don't have an ensuite. It's but that's when you call over the guide but the guides were telling us most people are just don't even want to try, and they end up peeing in a bottle. So it happens. But all of the accommodations and the mobile safaris that we've chosen they just absolutely blew me away. Like, so they've set up with like a walkout with an open roof at the back of the tent, and these are all stand-up tents. And then that back section, you've got your sit-down toilet and a shower all set up. In the main part, there's a huge kind of rug. I always pictured the old colonial times and, being bought a tray with your gin and tonic. It literally is just like that. I mean, it's really nice to have that element of luxury after a day's walking safari or game drive. It's a beautiful experience. But yeah, what really blew me away is that in all the places we stay, it's, everything was included, even, wine and they always... sundowners, you'll know this was an absolute daily tradition to have a a gin and tonic and a few nuts and nibbles and watch the sun go down, So it was, but everything was included, and the meals were just incredible. And we've got this good mix between these mobile safaris and also these beautiful lodges. So, for example, down in South Africa, we've got our Mkombi trip, which is it's a trip which mixes both walking and game safaris really well. You also you get to check out Cape Town. There's also a bit of a bike ride on the trip in Cape Town, so it's a good wee mix. But yeah, these two lodges that we stay at, one of them is called Notton's Camp, and the other one's called Clisiri Sands. I mean, these things are built right next to watering holes, and as I was describing earlier, water attracts all these animals. And so I think it was on my first or second night after arriving in South Africa, and we're staring at Clisiri Sands. And so they've got an infinity pool which looks across a dry riverbed to a watering hole. And I was sat there and I was past my gin and tonic, and I'm watching this leopard walk out to just start drinking from the side of this watering hole. And I'm sat there I'm just in awe. I just cannot believe that I'm sat in all this luxury looking at this scene. And then I see this elephant, crash through the bush to come to the same watering hole. The watering hole's across the riverbed. I'd say it was probably 200 meters away, So the fact that you can just sit there and enjoy a gin and tonic and watch this, I just couldn't believe it. I remember FaceTiming my wife saying that you need to come here as soon as possible, because I knew that she would love the luxury side of it, and the fact that you could literally just watch this, you're on safari, but you're on a deck with an infinity pool. It was just mind-blowing. So yeah, we do have a good mix between these sort of luxurious lodges, and I would definitely call our mobile safaris more glamping than camps, for sure.
Photo I saw, and please send us a photo as well, so I'll put that in the website.
Yeah, we'll do.
So you mentioned the food. I know that I may not have the fancy tents that you had, but I had delicious food. I was shocked. I really didn't expect to like the food that much, but it was really good. Tell us about the food that you guys provide.
Meat and veg. It was quite English, if you like.
Oh, you were having English? Yeah, we had a French cook. One of our drivers is French, so we always had a soup. It was always a delicious soup made from whatever vegetables he found in the market that day. And then, but one night we had Italian night. It was just, the food was delicious.
Yeah, that's right. We had definitely a bit of a mix. We had different types of cuisine along the way, and always 3 courses. So typically, it would start with a soup, and would always have freshly baked breads and lots of salads and a choice of different meats. And it was incredible, really. Like, I remember breakfast always being this huge selection. I was just thinking, God, there's only just myself and John and a couple other guys, but there was enough food for, I think, about 20 people. It was crazy.
And if people are worried when you say salad, it's okay to eat the salad. They triple wash it so well because they don't want you getting sick when you're sitting in a Jeep all day. So they are their hygiene and their care to make sure that the food is of the utmost sanitation. It's not to worry. Anything you're served, go ahead and chow down.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Do you remember having the rusks?
I didn't go to South Africa. I was just in Tanzania, but that's not ringing a bell.
Okay, well, they have these. They're kind of like a hard, thick sort of biscuit, and it's very, very traditional to always crack these out on your game drive and dip them in your hot tea or coffee. But I was just kind of surprised that every single game driver or guide would always have a bag of these rusks. It's interesting.
I want to talk too about logistics. A lot of people might be intimidated about going to Africa. It's so far away. You can provide help for people to figure out the logistics, or talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's one of those things. I mean, we were coming from New Zealand, so for us, we just simply went through Perth and then straight into Joburg, and then the flights, the domestic flights and safari flights around Africa really blew me away. They were so efficient, on time, and of course, they're the most mind-blowing flights ever. I think we actually ended up doing 21 flights all up because we were, wanted to check out as much as we could of all 4 of these trips. But yeah, getting to Botswana or getting to Tanzania or getting to Johannesburg from from North America, from Europe. It's really easy, and they're really well priced flights. It's there are a whole bunch of different carriers to choose from. I would certainly be looking around. I mean, it's one of those things. I think it's easier than you think.
And I will have a travel planner for this episode with the major portal cities in it and with links so that you can see what would be a good route for you. And also, I would like to recommend, too, that when you go, because there is, depending on where you're coming from, it could be a 6 to 10 hour time difference, that if possible, get to like Istanbul for a couple of days or get some of that time lag out of the way for a few days and break up your trip, because it's also a long trip. And then that way you're more refreshed when you get there. Because at least on the flights I was able to get, you land in the middle of the night and you want to have at least some get on the ground running the next day, because generally speaking, you start the safari the next morning. Am I correct in that or not?
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, you definitely start your trip. All of these trips, just like you said, you hit the ground running. You're straight into to the safaris, the animals, the walking safaris. Yeah, so that's good advice. Yeah, get some rest on your way.
And you're going to be so excited. You'll be awake for it. But I just think it helps to break it up a little bit so you're not in the plane that long. And it is so worth it. So even if you're like, oh, I don't want to be in a plane, it is so worth it. Go do this. These are all like epic bucket list trips.
Oh, totally.
Trip of a lifetime trips. We talked about weather and logistics. A lot of people want to go to see the migration. So when should people be thinking about going? Like what months of the year?
We were there in July, and what I always pictured or thought of migration as this short, one-directional movement of animals. But what I quickly realized when we were in the Serengeti, that this migration is movements of all sorts of herds of wildebeests in massive, vast amounts and numbers of wildebeests. But when you actually witness them all moving and all crossing a river, is absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't really click and realize what the migration was all about and why everybody wanted to go and check it out. When I saw a movement, there would have been at least maybe 400 to 500 wildebeest crossing a river. Then you understand what it's all about and why everybody heads to the Serengeti to see the migration.
So a little bit of background on the migration is I may be mispronouncing this, I often do. The Masai Mara is up in Kenya. So the animals are going back and forth between there and the Serengeti. So as I understand it, sometime June or July, it depends on how much rain, because the animals are following the vegetation. So when it gets too dry, they're going to follow where the grasses are growing. So then they're going to head down in their winter, our summer, July-ish down into the Serengeti, and then around December they're going to head back north again to Kenya. So I believe most of your trips are in the May to October timeframe, depending on which country we're talking about. But so if you can hit that July, August, that's a sweet spot to see a lot of that mass migration.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were there in July, so we hit that sweet spot. If you're heading to the Serengeti, then yeah, if you can, you're dead right. Aim for July. Yeah, July, August for sure.
And temperature-wise, it's pleasant. It's a bit cold in the morning, and then it warms up as I read, because I actually went in late January, so I caught the migration going the opposite direction, and only the start of it. So I saw maybe a few hundred, but not like the wave upon wave that I've seen film of.
Yeah, I temperature-wise, I was surprised. Like, yes, there was definitely a crisp chill in the air in the mornings, even to the point of gloves sometimes on some days, a little thin hat. It's as soon as that sun pops up and starts rising up, the gloves are coming off pretty quick, and so are the layers. But so that became a pretty regular pattern throughout the trip.
And then also you take a little side trip over to Victoria Falls. Did you get a chance to do that, Maddie?
I didn't know, but I'm gutted because lots of my friends have been lucky enough to witness Victoria Falls, and they say the roar, the noise, the feeling you get when you see it is life-changing. Yeah,
the local people named it the smoke that thunders, because this fall it's Not the largest. Iguazu Falls on the Brazilian-Argentinian border is, but this is, to put perspective, if you've been to Niagara Falls, it's twice as wide. So that tells you something of the stature. And then on the Canadian Niagara Falls, that's Horseshoe Bend. It's also twice as tall as that.
Yes, that's right.
So it's just massive. Well, you'll have to take your wife back.
That's right. That's right. I promised her as soon as I got back that I'd take. And actually, when I went, my wife Hannah had to look after our 1-year-old twins at the time, so they're now just a little bit over 2. But at one stage, we'll all go over as a family. I did notice these trips are perfect for families as well as solo travelers, and you see a whole mixture of different type of traveler in other game drives and with other trips. But I think my kids and wife would absolutely love to see some of the stuff that I was lucky enough to witness.
Definitely. And one thing, too, I think is important, too, is that by doing these safari drives or these game drives, we're actually helping the local people build their community by not poaching. So it's helping preserve the animals itself. And also, you've gone to great lengths to be eco-friendly in the places that you've chosen, and you're trying to limit the water bottles, which is a huge problem in Africa and many places of the world. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, I was really, really impressed. It's one thing that we had to certainly sign off on. We wanted to make absolutely certain that the partners that we were using on this trip were eco-friendly and very conscious of keeping everything clean, and obviously conscious about the environment around them. And we were blown away. Where do we stay? By the Kotangi River at an eco lodge there. But, everything was solar paneled. It's an amazing kind of network and system of tents they set up each season by this river. They show me photos of when they're not there, and it's literally just the wilderness, and they don't leave any type of footprint. They're very, very careful with all of their waste and power and consumption and all of the food. We definitely gave everything a very big tick. We were really impressed.
And now also you've expanded upon your active assurance program, because these are a little bit interesting times, we shall say. How about explaining exactly what active assurance is? Because these are big trips. So you're spending a lot of money. There's no doubt about it, but it's worth every penny. You'll come back and say it could have been double. I mean, it's that kind of a trip. But tell us about that.
Yeah, look, pretty quickly after, the border restrictions started to increase, we knew that we, needed to reach out to all of our partners around the globe and reduce commitment levels, because anything can happen, and we live in this new ever-changing world. And I'm sure even as borders start to open, they may close again. We need to be ready, and we need to be flexible. So active assurance does just that. Balance is due at 90 days, but you can get a full refund, 100%, up to 30 days out. It just gives everyone a lot more flexibility.
That's less than the $500 deposit. That gets applied to a future trip?
That's right, yes. So you've only put down your $500, and even if the borders affected your trip or you get a change of mind or for any reason whatsoever, you still wouldn't lose out on your deposit. That's yours for life. We would, transfer that to any trip in any destination.
And it doesn't even have to be you. So let's say I don't want to do it, or whatever reason, I can give that to my sister.
That's right.
Or I could do something else with that too. So you've built in all the things that could be an issue, so that pretty much if it's more than 30 days before the trip, you've got like ultimate flexibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you say, that deposit's fully transferable to any other name. So yes, you can give it to a family member, or means that ultimately up to 30 days, you've got zero commitment.
Even a different trip. Let's say you don't even want to go there anymore. You want to go to Iceland instead. You could move it to an Iceland trip.
Exactly. And it doesn't expire either. It's like I said, it's yours for life.
So you can lock in your seat. You make sure you've got a spot on it. And then you can, as the date gets closer and you see what's going on in the world, you can pull the trigger to decide whether or not you're going or not.
That's right. I'd recommend doing that, because what I think is going to happen here, and when borders do start to open, I think we're going to see an elastic band effect. There's going to be a lot of pent-up demand for travel. Even the thought, these memories of the Ngorongoro Crater and seeing these animals, it just makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. But I think that's the emotion now is higher, I guess, because of the world we're now in. The fact that I can't hop on a plane and go back and see it right now. But I think when this starts to happen, it's going to get very busy very quickly, I think. So availability may become an issue further down the line.
That would be wonderful. And let's see, I want to ask you one more question about animals because you can tell I love them. Which were your favorites?
I would have to say we saw a serval, which was a very rare sighting. They're very, very nocturnal, quiet, shy animals. And we saw one.
What is it? I don't even know what that is.
A serval, it's a cat. It's a predatory cat, but it's a lot smaller than, say, a leopard or lion. Or I would say probably about half the size. They've got little tiny little points on the top of their ears. We were with a guide that had been. She was actually from Australia, but she had lived in Botswana for about the last 9 years and had gone through the guide training. This was the first serval she had seen. So I felt, extremely lucky. When
you tell your friends about your experiences there, what's your go-to story?
Well, it's hard to pick a particular point. I wrote a letter when we were staying next to the Kwai River. I wanted to capture the feelings that I was experiencing at the time in my tent. So I emailed that out to all the staff here at HQ in Queenstown in New Zealand. So it's not too long. I'll give it a read if you want.
I would love for you to read it. Would you mind?
Yeah, no problem. Hi guys, I'm lying in my tent next to the Kwai River. The sun went down about an hour ago and the sounds around me are both terrifying and exciting. Okwa Savati, our legendary local guide, told me at dinner that the lions I can hear roaring are between 1,800 and 2,200 feet away. They sound like they're right outside my tent. We're currently on a private reserve just by the Kwai River, northeast Botswana. We're experiencing a mobile safari and it truly is a life-changing experience. I originally planned to wait until my return to let you know the exciting news about our next destination, Active Africa. But I can't wait. I had to put pen to paper while I was halfway through this incredible journey. We arrived in Johannesburg, South Africa, a little over a week ago to safety check and familiarize ourselves with the activities that our guests will experience on our 4 brand new African adventures. So far, we've explored and stayed at some amazing private reserves in Timbavati, Klasiri, and Sabi Sands, all of which are located in the greater Kruger area in South Africa. We then flew from Kruger National Park to Botswana before making an incredible journey to our current remote location via a 2-hour 4x4 track, a 3-hour hike, and then a 2-hour Makoto, a traditional canoe used by our local tribes to transfer through the delta. We've stayed in some beautiful lodges and experienced mobile safari camping, which is more like glamping, with ensuite bathrooms and showers attached to each large canvas tent. The food and service has been incredible every step of the way. It's wonderful to receive amazing 3-course meals from the camp chef before returning to the roaring fire to share the day's experience and under the stars. Game drives are usually available at sunrise and sunset, and with expert guides, it's not long before you're a few meters away from elephants, leopards, impala, zebra, buffalo, crocodiles, hippos, lions, rhinos, you name it. You'll be up close and personal with all the animals that make this continent so unique. Personally, I've really enjoyed encounters with lesser-known, rarer animals like a serval at Moremi Crossing and a Pell's fishing owl at Klasiri Reserve. One activity that I'm really excited to share with you is safari trekking. This is a completely different experience to game driving. It's the transition from observer to participant that makes all the difference. Wayne de Breck is well known as one of South Africa's greatest safari walking guides. He took us on a 4-hour walking safari in Timbavati that I'll never ever forget. His knowledge and tracking ability meant we were quickly on the trail of a female white rhino and cub. While tracking them, we came across many other animal prints. Wayne was able to describe the animals, their size, their direction, the kill they were dragging, and how long they had passed. The detail lets your imagination paint an incredibly accurate picture. This type of trekking is unlike the hiking we're used to. There's no planned trail, length, or direction. You're simply at the mercy of what's out there. It's a unique experience that gets the adrenaline pumping in a scary but safe environment.
Once is not enough. I got to go back. And I'm on my list now. I want to do your Botswana trip. That one's really rocking my boat. I want to go in. What was the name of that boat again? The canoe?
Oh, the Makotos through the Delta, yeah.
Yes, I want to do that. And then I also want to do, what is fly camping? That sounded interesting.
Well, fly camping, it's a term they use for basically when you set up camp and then move to another camp and set up camp again. So
that's the mobile camping.
Yeah. It's just another term for mobile camping, yeah.
All right, very cool. And then also, is there anything I should have asked you about Africa that I didn't?
There's probably tons, but I can't think off the top of my head. I think your choice of the our Makoto trip in the Okavango Delta is a good choice.
Well, they're all excellent choices. And then also, too, if you're more into the animals and culture, then the South Africa is the one that I think you would go with, because you do go down to Cape Town and you learn all about apartheid. You learn about the colonial times. You get a whole little bit of history and the cultural aspect more so than you would on the other trips, but you also get the animals.
One big difference about our South Africa trip, so, we call it the Big Five, the Kruger, because, you'll tick off the Big Five in about 5 minutes. It's crazy because we go to these great spots. But the reason, we're able to see so many animals down there in South Africa, and we do things slightly differently, because you've got Kruger National Park, which is one of the most famous national parks in the world because it's densely populated with all sorts of animals. But in actual fact, there's a lot of rules and regulations around how you can see these animals. For example, you can't, leave the 4x4 track, or you can't get out the vehicle and do any walking safari. You can't do any night game drives. So we've kind of worked our way around that by staying in the greater Kruger area. So we're right next to Kruger National Park, and there aren't borders between these parks. They're all sort of open, and so the animals just flow through, between all of these national parks. So that gives us the ability to do these walking safaris in the Greater Kruger, to do these night game drives and at sunset and sun up, and just a little bit more flexibility. And also the fact there's less people. It's just as densely populated with animals, but less densely populated with people. So I think we've chosen some really, really good spots in South Africa, that's for sure.
That kind of wraps up what I want to talk about with Africa. But also, when we had Wendy on the show on that roundup interview I did with several tour operators, she said you were getting ready to pivot and then also do some tours in the U.S., which I believe are, if not underway, are like imminent. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, we actually had our first trip head out about 2 weeks ago. So what we've done there is partnered with Austin Adventures. And for many years, we saw Austin as, almost a bit of a kindred spirit. They seem to embrace, a lot of our ethics, moral, what we believe makes an amazing trip. Hidden little wow moments, the importance of having best possible guides on the planet. There's a lot of things we do. And there's sort of, almost this kind of family atmosphere with Austin Adventures. It's very similar to what we have down here in New Zealand with Active Adventures. So yeah, we reached out and we clicked straight away, and we've partnered up, and we're running these trips now in the US. So I think it's going to grow. We don't have any trips now on the road until May next year. But yeah, head to our website and check them out. It's exciting.
Well, that you're doing a lot of the really cool national parks in Utah, as well as Yellowstone and Teton. So you're hitting all my hot buttons there too. Want to get somebody on the show and talk about those too once people get back. So that's super cool. I'm really glad to see you expanding into the United States.
Yeah, and quietly, Alaska is looking likely. That's something we're currently researching. So,
that would be great. That would be great. So wonderful. Well, Maddie, any final thoughts before we let you go?
Well, you've put me back in the Serengeti and in the Ngorongoro Crater. You've put me back in South Africa. So I'm sure for the rest of the day, I'm sort of going to be drooling and wishing I could get back there. But I definitely will as soon as we can.
All right. Well, be sure to send us lots of photos, and I'll get these all on the website. And again, I'll have a travel planner that goes out with this episode that'll have just a general things about the different trips that we talked about today. And then we'll do more in detail once I get an individual about each trip further on down the road, hopefully next year. Yeah,
sounds good. Look, I'll definitely send you through those pictures. I'll also send you that recording I took on my phone of the lion roaring outside my tent. It was pretty scary.
Definitely. Yeah, very intense. Very cool. Well, thank you again, Maddie. Appreciate it.
Okay, all right. Cheers, Kit.
I loved doing this interview. It brought back so many grand memories of my safari adventures in Africa, and I hope that you got as much enjoyment out of Maddie's interview and learning about the different places that Active is now going. And I truly would like to definitely do that Botswana trip, so I'm going to start saving up for that, and I'm excited when that opens back up, which will hopefully be next year. Be sure you head to the website today to check out all of Maddie's photos. They are amazing, and you'll see also that the accommodations that he was living in while he was there is a heck of a lot better than the place that I lived in. And I also love that they did a walking safari. They were out in the bush, and like I said, you actually feel part of the scenery, but they do it in a safe manner. I know a lot of people may be intimidated about going to Africa. The people are lovely. They're friendly. The guides are amazing. They know the animals and they know where to go. They know the behaviors. So you will be safe, but you will get this extraordinary experience of just seeing masses upon masses of animals. I even fell in love with the hyenas, an animal I had bad vibes on just due to the Lion King. And they had an important integral part of the food chain. It's their job to break up the bones. If it weren't for them, you'd see carcasses all over the place. But it's an extraordinary experience to see the circle of life. And I cannot more highly recommend choosing one of these destinations and putting that on your list to go see. It is definitely something to see before you die, particularly if you can time it for the migration. If you haven't done so already, I do encourage you to email me and ask to join my monthly newsletter. I will have the travel planner for this and all adventures that we cover on this program in my once a month, no spam guarantee, unsubscribe anytime newsletter. But that's where you'll get the details so that you can plan these adventures, as well as other things that you won't find on the website or on the show. So I encourage you to either email me at kit@activetraveladventures.com or just go to the website and hit contact. That'll reach me there. Newsletter, that'll hit from there. It's just me. So any communications all come directly to me, and I'll take care of it from there. I hope you've enjoyed exploring an amazing continent today, and I look forward to more adventures. I've got another cool African adventure that's in the can that will be coming out not too far from now, where we'll be going gorilla trekking. So I've got some really cool shows coming up in the new year. So I also do hope that you're subscribed so you don't miss any of those. And don't forget about the companion podcast, The Adventure Travel Show, which is now moved to monthly. So that comes out the first Thursday of the month. And I've got some great shows in the can there too. I thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on.